All right, and welcome to Beyond the Box. And this is a great presentation we have today. A very special guest we have with us today. We have lead anchor for the morning news and other special programming, which we'll talk about in the city of Bakersfield, California. We're going to talk about Bakersfield. Uh, and I want to talk about the phenomenon of Bakersfield, how it has 500,000 people and it's barely a blip on the California map. But it's significant. It's a major market in most states. It would be a premier market. And we'll talk about the unique market of Bakersfield. Um, but as we begin, I want to introduce our viewers, listeners to Sara Shouhayib. And Sara Shouhayib is an Emmy Award winning journalist currently working in Bakersfield, as mentioned. And she's the morning news anchor at KBAK, KBFX. Sarah graduated from the University of Michigan, Wolverine, in 2013. Yeah. With her double major was in communications and Spanish, and with an environmental science minor. And she completed her graduate studies in journalism at the Medill School at Northwestern University. That was in 2015. In 2019, Sarah completed a great fellowship with the National Press Foundation and learning about vaccines from the nation's top health experts, including Dr. Anthony Fauci. She also taught journalism at Bakersfield College as an adjunct instructor from 2019 to 2020. And Sarah is a proud daughter of Lebanese immigrants and has been involved in countless charitable endeavors to give back to the place that she considers her second home. So, a great pleasure to have one of our great journalists and reporters and our personalities here from the media, Sara Shouhayib. Thank you, Sarah, for spending some time today.
Jose, thank you so much for all those kind words. I'm so happy to be here. And ultimately, above else from that title, no, I'm just a human like you, just out here trying to live life, navigate this pandemic.
We talked about this in the little pre interview, and Michael Wilbon and all your Wildcats, they would totally disagree. They know you Wildcats are like a little higher in the echelon of humanity than than most people know. So
You know what we call ourselves? We call
what?
ourselves the Medill Mafia.
Oh no,
Hmm.
you don't.
Yes, we do.
We're the
It's a,
Murrow Mafia over
no
here. You see this?
way.
And
It's
I
too
think we might have
funny.
even lifted that from Missouri, the Mizzou Mafia.
Oh my
I think
gosh.
they
I
may have
wonder
been
who came up
first.
with it first. We'll have
You think
to
you
track
can?
that one
Let's
down.
do some
Yeah,
research.
yeah, yeah. We'll get back to each other about that one.
Yeah, we should all be qualified to do some research and figure this out from all these schools we claim so much fame from.
Exactly.
That's awesome. I wanted to give you a chance to just say some words about yourself, and because you have a very wonderful journey that begins
Thank
even
you.
before your life through your parents and your
Yeah.
family. But I wanted to
Yeah.
give you a chance to talk a bit about
Sure.
yourself. I know you're very humble, but is there anything I missed?
So I would say the part about being a proud daughter of Lebanese immigrants is sort of the genesis of where my story starts, where your story starts. Our parents are the ones that are our makers, right? So um, my parents moved to the States and had all four of us kids. I'm the youngest of four. Um, Lebanese people like to have big families. We like to procreate. So I've got a lot of cousins, grew up with a lot of people running in and out of the house and a lot of food. And I would say that's the biggest backdrop and foundation to who I am because I grew up going to Lebanon every summer. We spoke Arabic in the home. I still cook Arabic food. And it was really like my dad and being connected to the homeland and having the news on all the time, whether that was Arabic or English, CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, whatever it was. That was always on in the home. And that was a way to stay connected with the homeland and know what's going on. By virtue of that, it got me hooked on the news. And little did I know, my path would lead me to where I'm at right now. I did the morning announcements as a kid in elementary school,
Okay.
which is crazy to think about because at that time I had no idea that this is what I was going to do.
Right.
In high school, I did the school newspaper. In college, at the University of Michigan, we have something called Wolv TV, WOLV TV, and I did entertainment news during that time. And it was super fun. But yeah, we didn't have a journalism program, so that's when I went to Northwestern. And last but not least, what got me here previously, I went to Toledo, Ohio as a reporter and anchor. And then that got me this full-time anchor gig here in Bakersfield. So quite the journey, but it's honestly been so fun. And I'm just so grateful that I get to do what I love every day.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for adding a little more detail because, well, the route you're taking, as we know, my peers and everybody who's stuck with the pursuit of broadcast journalism, like that can be a very tumultuous path, very rewarding, and you're being
Mhm.
rewarded with your opportunities and achievements and your great skills and recognition. Um, but that can, town to town, to trying to get from market to
Oh, it can be
market.
exhausting, man. Let's just call a spade a spade.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What's that? Talk about the life of that, because as you exit Northwestern, like you're like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go
Mhm.
ahead and put my bid in Toledo. We're gonna get to
Mhm.
Bakersfield. I'll be in LA soon, maybe
Mm.
Chicago or New York if I want to. I'll be there. What's that mentality like? Even because it's competitive. It's heavy
Super
competition.
competitive.
Talk
It's
talk a bit about it.
it's super competitive. I would say the biggest thing is you develop this thick skin that you didn't even know could grow. And it's not in a sense where, your heart gets callous by any stretch. No, it's actually the opposite. You become very empathetic by virtue of speaking with so many different people. You're often talking to people on the worst day of their lives doing our job.
Mm.
So you become very humble and empathetic of people's challenges throughout that process. But I will say, you become very strong ultimately because it is a grind. I mean, I wake up at 2:30 in the morning every day to go to work. I don't know. I would say there is some strength that comes with that. Putting your feet on the ground at 2:30 in the morning, the sun isn't up, none of your friends are up, no one's up that you know, but you just have that inner drive that keeps you going. So I would definitely say that to do this job you have to keep your eye on the prize and you have to love it because well, I don't want to speak for everyone's experience, but journalism doesn't pay that much in the beginning, so you really have to have a passion for it to keep you
Mhm.
going.
You made a remarkable comment a moment ago that really, I would like for you to put some more shine on this perspective. You said sometimes you speak with people on the worst day of their life. Sometimes it can be the entire opposite, but just the prospect of doing your duty as a journalist, which at one point was considered in the professional ranks the same level of integrity as an honorable doctor or a
Mhm.
lawyer, just lost its prestige in a lot of cases. So, we could talk about that too. But when you have the prestige or integrity and you're speaking with somebody on what could be probably maybe the worst day of their life, and this is happening often, how do you approach that kind of scenario? Or, professionally, trying to have composure, being empathetic at the same time, conveying the feeling through the television screen or through your writing. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think that comes with time, knowing how to approach people, right? You're not really taught that in journalism school to there's no handbook how to talk to someone who just lost their daughter, how to talk to someone who just had their house burned down with all their childhood memories inside. There's no handbook to know how to do that. So it definitely comes with experience, and I'll say it also weighs on you. I'm a very sensitive person. I think that's part of the reason why I got into this because I wanted to provide a voice to the voiceless, like a lot of journalists want to do.
Right.
Um, and there were times I would cry after I was done reporting on something. I'd come home and I would just cry because it was overwhelmingly sad. And there was even times I cry on the job. I've been caught on the air crying before
Mm.
because of sad events. And I think that that's okay. Every journalist you ask will approach that a little differently. But for me, I think it's okay to let your colors flow the way your colors flow, as I always say. And it can be a beautiful canvas at the end. So I think ultimately, though, you have to be sensitive towards people and empathetic. Empathy is what connects all of us. We can all be even more connected if we just take a moment to understand that person's walk of life and where they came from and how they got there and what they're going through. I really think that that's something not only journalists need to harness, but the humankind.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
Um, I can sense and feel in your voice the affection and great reverence you have for your parents.
Oh, big
Are,
time.
are they some, well, we're thankful for people like them. Are they some of the people who helped you to be able to tap into your emotion and empathy as a reporter? Or where do you get this from?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for picking up on that. My parents, are everything to me, and I there's not a day that goes by where I don't recognize that if it wasn't for them, I would not be here. Yeah, they're my heroes. I mean, they came from a war-torn country. My father left, Lebanon, to get an education here in the States, in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, in one of the coldest places in the US you can live in, where he got his engineering degree. He's the American dream. Whereas my mom is, defied so many odds. She was living in a village. She was 17 years old when my dad met her. She moved to the US at 18, got married, had her first baby at 19, and she's an amazing mom with so much compassion and consideration for others. And now she is my dad's business partner, and they run a real estate company that extends across the Midwest. I mean, if that's not the American story and what teaches you about hard work and empathy, again, for others. I think that's part of the reason why my parents are successful because they're nice, good people, and the universe rewards you for
Wow. Well, thank you
that.
to them. Wow. I mean,
I could
that's
go
an
on and
awesome.
on about my parents. They're literally amazing. They're
It's
awesome.
beautiful. You can brag about them. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful
Thank
thing,
you.
because I'm sure that I
Thanks.
know they brag about you and your siblings, whatever
Well,
you all
all
doing.
parents do that. All parents
They
have to
do.
do that. It's like they sign a contract the moment you're born, right? Like, okay, I gotta brag about my kid in the future.
Right, right, right. Well, um, you mentioned the beginnings. You know, all of our beginnings come from somebody else. And your
Absolutely.
family's from what's known as the Levant, the region,
Mhm,
uh, Lebanon and Syria. Your cousin, people right
mhm.
across the border. Um, what should people know about this place? You visited the old homeland throughout your life. We talked about in the pre-production. What's what what's your experience when you go to Lebanon, and can you talk a bit about paint a picture for us about life there?
It is I'm gonna try my best to truncate it into a snapshot, that's, digestible for people. Because this is also another topic I could go on and on about. I have more experience in Lebanon than I do with Syria, although, my grandmother was Syrian. My middle name is Selma. I'm named after my Syrian grandmother. So I definitely have a part of that heritage built into my life, certainly, first and foremost with my name. But I went to Syria when I was a kid, so I don't remember. But I guess the one thing I will say about Syria is that they're still in a civil war.
Yeah.
And just breaks my heart what's happening over there. Just breaks my heart. And that's connected to Lebanon because more than 1 million refugees came into Lebanon, a country that already is so small and strapped in an economic sense, also has Palestinian refugees. Also, its own people have, you know, um, economic strife and hunger issues. So mix all that together, and it's this perfectly chaotic place. And I say that because despite all of the woes the country has experienced, I'm talking about Lebanon, you will never meet a people more excited to have fun, enjoy life, love on one another. And I think that's not portrayed, and I hate to use the word the media because I am a part of it, but I will say um, the picture that most people have in the US is all the Middle East is lumped together. It's all the same. It's all X, Y, and Z. It's war torn. There's X. I mean, I'm trying to avoid some stereotypical things because I don't want to, perpetuate that. Um, but it is a beautiful place. Lebanon is on the Mediterranean Sea. It borders Syria, Israel, Palestine, Jordan. And if you ever have a chance to go to Beirut, the capital, you will have one of the best times of your life. It's the major party capital of the world. And it used to be referred to as the Paris of the Middle East
Yeah.
prior to the Civil War. Um, yeah, that ended in 1990. So it's a very strong and resilient country. And people always say when they meet me, "Well, you look white." I don't identify as white. I identify as an Arab American woman, as Middle Eastern. And I just like to say there are many people that look like me in Lebanon that have lighter hair,
Yeah.
green eyes, lighter features. So I stand here to be a challenge to the norm of people's way of thinking that everyone is dark featured or everyone acts a certain way. It's
Right.
multifaceted. There are more than 20 religions in Lebanon alone, the size of Connecticut. So it's
Right.
very diverse.
Right. And it's a well, that Mediterranean path, that waterway, is the mixture of people is historic.
Exactly.
There's of course European influence and
Mhm.
Arabic and African and
Mhm.
like the whole gamut there. So you just get a really unique look of many different looks of
Mhm.
people. And thank you for sharing, a bit
Absolutely. Thank you for
about
the question.
the atmosphere. I reflect on hearing that about Beirut. It has such negative connotations when people say that word because of the trauma experienced by the people there and the invasions and horrific incidents that have happened. Um, but you also said it's like the party capital. And what it makes me think of is like, we haven't experienced this in the United States with multiple foreign invasions. And I just think of the places where people have a different, I'm just saying different,
Mhm.
appreciation for life. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
when you have a tank that rolled through your grandmother's yard, it makes you look at the world a bit different. And you have that in Europe, Africa, and parts of the Arabic lands in the so-called Middle East, which is very diverse anyway. Um,
Exactly.
so I appreciate you conveying that because we have one-dimensional and poor media coverage of the kaleidoscope of culture that exists.
Exactly. And I think a part of that too, and it depends, right? Because I think there are some, wonderful news publications out there that give the region justice.
Hmm.
There's countless New York Times articles, Wall Street Journal, you name it. It's certainly given it the justice it deserves. But I think, for things like my medium, like television and local news, where you have to write a quick story and condense it into 30 seconds,
Right.
lose so much of that depth. So, maybe it sort of just depends. And sometimes I wonder, um, sometimes maybe we're the problem, the news makers, the news writers, the news producers. Um, maybe we should do a better job of being more detailed so we can educate people a little more.
That's what we're here for. Well,
Exactly.
let's talk about that because I think people, we have terms such as fake news, which can be a real thing, but it's used in all, like it's just a blanket statement over all
Oh,
media.
right.
Uh, and I want to get into, like, let's share with the viewers some of the process that you just described because producers have so much time in a newscast to fit however many stories in. We know the industry term, if it bleeds, it leads. So whatever is
Exactly.
more dramatic, sensational, there's producers. It's very popular to put the most traumatic or the most exciting news at the top of the news, and whatever else falls in line falls in line. But can you talk a bit about that? Because there's a reason a murder could be a 1 minute story. There's
Yeah.
a reason that this all happens, just to break down the science of the broadcast industry, so people can get an idea why it's important. You being a Medill
Hmm.
student, um, when we did, I'm just saying this. I'm prefacing this because I want you to talk about it.
Sure.
Um, there was research that said 3% of people in our population in the United States actually read and do their research to gather information. It's a very small number. I don't know if that's accurate at this time,
That's very
but so
small.
most of the information is coming from you or me or Amy Goodman or Fox News or some source. It's being fed.
Exactly.
There's not an additional two or three sources on the same story that people were actually investigating.
Right.
Um, so I just want, laying all that on your plate. Go ahead.
So, yeah, I mean, gosh, I have a lot to say about that. I think first and foremost, the thing that people always complain to me about is, "Oh, I can't watch the news. It's so depressing. And why don't you guys put some happy stories in there?" I said, "Because no one's gonna watch." You don't think that news businesses and companies haven't done extensive research on this? Time and time again, people want to see the drama. People want to see the action. And there's no action happening at, an Easter bunny drive on a Sunday. That's not going to get people to your newscast. It's just not. And ultimately, people need to realize the news is a business. That's how it goes, absolutely. But one thing that I will vouch for is that things are true. So this fake news slogan that's now been smeared across people like myself, this entire industry, is simply not fair. And that really formed out of, Donald Trump, by the way, was not the first person to come up with fake news. This has been,
Yeah.
this is just, it's just a recycled version of fake news. Um, but yeah, I mean, everything that's put in a newscast is true, and ultimately, what we're supposed to do is you tell people the facts in a short and condensed version so they can understand it the best way possible, and you leave it up to them to decide how they feel about it. That's what we're supposed to do. And I think that we could do a little better in our industry, I will say, of following stories, making sure that we take them a step further and see where that resolution is. Oftentimes we'll have like a crime story and we'll never hear about it again, you know? And that's also many reasons why we might not hear it again. Maybe police never cracked the case, what have you. But I do think that, um, producers have a really tough time. For folks out there that aren't familiar with how this works, I'm a news anchor. I'm the person that sits behind the desk. Um, we have producers that write the stories for us. Not that I'm not editing it. I edit every story I read on the news. But our producers have like 4 or 5 hours to put together an hour-long newscast. There's like 50 stories in there. It is not a lot of time. So, they are pushed to the brink. They have a time constraint that they need to match and meet. They have a deadline, and oftentimes, I don't blame them for not being able to get everything in. So, I don't know, maybe it's the system that needs to change.
Well, I'm trying to. We have inside experience and information, and most people are not trained in media analysis or even just media studies, journalism.
Mhm.
Um, and I think what you did, you just kind of laid it out. And I don't know, tell me what you think, but I have awareness that our founding fathers, this goes back, it's a principled point that the founding fathers said, in this country, which is unique at the time of its birth and inception, um, citizens here would have to be sophisticated in their citizenship in
Mm.
order to maintain whatever the design that the hypocritical founding fathers put together. And I only say that because they didn't adhere to their own ideals, you
Right.
know, treating women, all men women, children equal. That they didn't enact that, but I applaud their brilliance. They had a great
Of
idea,
course.
and I only say that to say it takes sophistication that most people don't feel like putting time into when they're viewing the news to kind of go through this network and that network or read, like you mentioned, some of the journals, news journals that'll give you 7 pages for a
Hmm.
story about Lebanon rather than a 90-second package.
Exactly.
Um, these type of things. It's I don't, and like you said, we talked about the competitiveness of the industry with you just as an individual competing your way through markets. Bakersfield, you have to compete with the other affiliate stations for who's number one to get the best ad rates. To be able to demand
Exactly.
funds as a business. So I just wonder. I mean, do you think it's even possible? It is. Anything's possible. Do you think it's realistic that there'll even be a reproach to like looking at this because you mentioned all the reasons why it is in place and there's not a real impetus to change anything.
It's so hard to say, Jose. It's like,
Was that too much? Is that
no, no, it's
okay?
because I have these discussions all the time with my
Okay.
peers, and there's many the news industry right now is flawed for many reasons. I would say the biggest one though, and I'm just gonna put it out there. I won't speak about anyone specifically, but if people don't know how much journalists and producers make, they
Mm,
make like, I can tell you, just like based off of this California market in Bakersfield, where I'm at, the ninth largest city in California. We'll get back to, explaining a little more about Bakersfield in a bit, but there's producers that are here on a $30,000 salary, $30,000 a year. So, I think what needs to change is if we want our news quality to improve, then the people themselves either need to be of a higher caliber and we pay them more,
mm,
or we invest in them and we train them properly. We get them up to speed with the type of news that, the organization would like to see and at a certain standard, and then we pay them appropriately. So I always feel like if people know the background of someone, I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but not that I'm only motivated by money, it is certainly a factor, right? We have to put food on the
yeah, pay
table.
bills. Yeah.
Exactly. But I will say that, if you're getting paid and devalued to a point where you feel like, man, they don't even care about me around here. Like, why would I put in like all this hard work? And that's a part of the problem. The news industry is very flawed right now. They're losing money, and they're not able to pay their people adequately. And, the youngest person coming out of college, sometimes not even going to college, is getting hired on to do the job in the cheapest way possible. That's just what's happening. That's the reality.
Right. You can be replaced.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like, oh, you don't want to be here. You want to get paid $20,000 more because, you have a master's degree. We'll just get that girl coming out of school. She's willing to get paid $22,000.
Yeah.
It's
We'll
crazy.
even
It really is crazy.
we'll even deal with her green uh, characteristics over
Yes,
your polished to save
exactly.
some money. Yeah, and train her up.
Exactly. Exactly. And sometimes you still cannot train them to get to that seasoned place or that person otherwise, who would take that position would be. So there's a lot of conflicts. Look, no industry is perfect, but these are the current ones that we're facing right now. People are dropping like flies. They're getting into the industry and realizing, wow, I can't pay for anything. And they have to leave the business because they want a better life outside of work. It's a cool industry, but if you can't, afford things, then you got to jump ship and explore some other options.
Right, right. Is there are there any uh like challenges that you've had coming up through the industry and even um I'm aware, I don't think it's you have to pretend about anything, but coming from an Arab background, like were there prejudices that you had to encounter or stereotypes that you witnessed? or do people even acknowledge? Do they even know with your unique last name and appearance? Like, what? How does that?
So I'm always a mixed bag, man. People can't ever really peg where I'm from, you know? But they hear Shahayib, and the first thing they ask me is if I'm Jewish. I think maybe because it has that sounding type of name. And I do think that the Jewish culture is so perpetuated in like TV shows and that sort of thing. So maybe people are just more, they think of that first because that's the first thing that comes to mind. It's what they're familiar with. So and the Jewish people don't look too different than a lot of us Arabs, so it's not an unfair guess. But I will say, being an Arab woman, there are certainly many stereotypes. I am not Muslim, but I've been asked if I was Muslim in the workplace when I'm interviewing people, and I just think that's very inappropriate to ask someone their religious standing,
Mhm.
if it's not, prompted, and I believe it doesn't matter. Whether I'm Muslim or not, it doesn't matter, but I definitely am asked that quite a bit, and, I have many, Muslim brothers and sisters, and, um, I always talk very highly of them because I feel the way they are perpetuated in, this mainstream world after 9/11 is simply not fair. So I always try to stand with them and educate people to not conflate Muslim and Islam with an Arab culture identity. Religion is not culture.
Right.
Culture is not religion. They cannot be conflated. They're not one and the same. So that's something that I've really used my platform to educate people about, and I'm proud to do that. I'm happy to do that. I think I have a very unique situation. Not a lot of people have this space to operate in. So, there's been a couple of stuff, but do I think it's held me back in my career? No. And if someone can't pronounce my name, I'm the type to sit there with them for 5 minutes and make sure that they understand because my last name means a lot to me. It was my grandpa's name, and he worked very, very hard in his life, and our name means something in Lebanon. It means something. So my boss asked me when I first started in Toledo, Ohio, if I wanted to change my last name, which a lot of reporters do, right? It's
Hmm.
to protect their own identity and to have a, they call it a stage name versus, their private life name. And for me, it was very important to keep it because I was proud of my family's name, and I wanted to continue that legacy and hopefully make my ancestors proud as well as my future kids and their kids. So there's a lot of stuff that comes about with misunderstanding, but it's just how you approach it. If you educate people, if you're calm and you explain things, you're doing them a favor by educating them on something. It's not their fault that they weren't exposed to it growing up or they don't know.
Right.
So um, I take a lot of pride in my position.
Right. Well, that's important. I don't want to impose the responsibility on you, but it's important to acknowledge. Some people don't make any distinction between Arabs and Muslims, and
Hmm.
demonizing the faith of Islam is
Hmm.
a mistake, as well as the people who practice Judaism, the three major religions in that region, Christianity and Islam. The people who practice it actually get along.
I
The people who
know.
practice it, not just
Exactly.
claim it, but the people who are
Exactly.
studying these the ways and the scriptures don't have a problem with each other
Exactly.
in the way that we are, it's depicted. Um,
Exactly. Good point.
you know, thank you. And I wanted to, hold you to account, as a great journalist and a member of the Medill Mafia. Uh,
Yes.
were you able to find out the meaning of the Shahayab family
Oh my
name?
gosh, that's what
You
I
forget.
was totally supposed to
Oh,
ask. I was totally supposed to ask. I'm pretty sure it means shooting star. I'm
okay.
pretty sure.
I know that's what you thought. I know. Okay, so I wanted to give an opportunity. It's a beautiful
I'm not
name.
about to like bet my life on it or
No.
nothing, but I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. And if not, I'm gonna blame my dad because that's what he told me. So maybe he was trying to give me confidence as a kid, you know?
That's why I was like, are you just talking about yourself, the shooting star? Well, and speaking of shooting stars, let me shift really quick here because you're an award-winning journalist and reporter. You have an Emmy under
I
your belt.
do.
And,
Yeah.
talk about the Emmy and what was that for and what was that feeling like when you were acknowledged with that?
Yeah, so I actually was about to go to bed to work the next morning. I wasn't able to go to the Emmy Awards, but myself, as well as our executive producer and producer, submitted our morning show for best breaking news broadcast. And I had just started in Toledo, Ohio. Okay, I didn't know which way was up. I was like a chicken with my head cut off. Okay, so for everyone out there, if you're planning on taking this route, fake it till you make it, okay? Because you never know what's gonna come about from it, okay? That's my motto. So first month on the job, we get this crazy story that this guy, unfortunately, was an addict and was trying to get his hands on, whatever opiates he could get. So we broke into a pharmacy overnight. And when we arrived to the scene, police had the building surrounded. Um, and we ended up getting the footage and reporting live on the air while he got tased to the ground and he charged at police. It was this whole, again, if it bleeds it leads type of thing.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was my first month reporting on the job and we got best breaking news coverage and I was the reporter on the story. And um I look back at that and I just think, I was such an unconfident reporter at the time. And we have to pat ourselves on the back sometimes. I'm really proud of the fact that I was able to leave Toledo with an Emmy under my belt. It's pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie.
That is cool.
Thank you. Thanks very
That's
much.
very awesome. Uh,
Yeah.
when you got this job, so you went from reporting and doing breaking coverage and news on the street.
Mhm. A lot of it.
Describe the feeling you got when you got the call back. I mean, did you interview for this? Did they come looking for you, and then you get the job? Describe that process.
Yeah, so I actually took a interesting path. After Toledo, I did the morning shift like I do now, where I go to sleep at 2:30 or where I wake up at 2:30 in the morning and I go to sleep at 6:30 p.m. I needed just a couple months off, man. So I did some world travels. Went to Lebanon with my dad. We went to Russia for the World Cup. Went to Mexico City. Just had a grand old time. I needed a break, and I advise a lot of people, if you have the means and the time, do yourself a favor and take a break, because the moment you get into this industry very, very hardcore, it kind of sucks you in and you forget to have some fun. So I just want to include that there. But I had never even heard of Bakersfield. If you want to know the truth, I had never heard of this place. I was just Googling after my 4 months off, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to start applying. Let's see what's out there. I want to move to California. I want to be a news anchor in California. Do you know how many people laughed in my face when I told them that? They were like, "Girl, dream on." Like that's not a very likely thing. Why don't you look all over the country? And I had my sights set on California.
Yeah.
So I saw this random city in Bakersfield, and within 24 hours, I heard back from the news director, and things were pretty quick after that. Within a month and a half, I was hired on, and I moved out here. I drove across the country with my brother all the way from Michigan. Um, and yeah, I mean, I still to this day, sometimes when I'm sitting at the anchor desk and the show's about to start, I take a deep breath in and I have to remember, excuse my language, but holy shit, like this is awesome, you know?
Yeah.
So, so yeah, but again, I had no idea where Bakersfield was, for folks wondering. It's about an hour northeast, an hour and a half northeast of Los Angeles.
Hmm.
So we're more inland.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, and what
Thank
a
you.
great focus. You seem to have maintained this again, probably through your parents and your siblings and family, and from
I'm blessed to
Michigan
have their
to
support.
Northwestern and Toledo, and you went to California. You said you wanted to go, you got there, and you end up in Bakersfield. And what always fascinates me, being originally born in the Bay and from LA, and living
Right?
in the Pacific Northwest now, I'm a Californian. I don't even choose between, like, it's blasphemous, but the Dodgers won the World Series,
Yes.
and I'm from San Francisco, born up in the Bay, And so I don't even choose between the Dodgers and the Giants. Like I like them both, and the Dodger and Giants fans would look at me like I'm crazy. But
No, that's good. You got nothing but love. I love that.
that's all I got. That's all I got for California. Real
Yes.
California love, like Tupac. And
Yes.
and
Love it.
but I would look at cities like Fresno. You know, I've been involved with Fresno State University, and but I look at like Bakersfield. I've always looked at Bakersfield. It's a massive
It
population,
really is.
and
It
it's
really
like
is.
it fascinates me that it is almost insignificant. It really isn't, but
Right.
when you look at the other population centers, it's like no one cares. It's in the
So
because
true.
it's off to the side. It's in its own space, and I'm like, no one ever mentions Bakersfield. There's 500,000 people
Oh,
there,
it's
right?
so
Is it?
funny.
What's the
Yeah.
population now? Is it about?
Yeah, so in Bakersfield itself, it's under 500,000. I'd say it's roughly around 400,000, 375 to 400,000, someplace around there. But Kern County, the county that we're in, is the 20th largest county by size, by square mileage in the United States. As
Gee,
a people, as a population, we're about 990,000. So we're fastly approaching that million marker for the county. So yeah,
nobody.
it's pretty significant. I know,
That
and it's
is
funny
significant.
because I didn't even know about it, and here I am living here, but, yeah, it's the ninth largest city in California, so it's no joke.
No, it's not. But it's like geez.
It's
I
often
mean,
overlooked,
what's
totally.
that? Yeah.
It's often
So
overlooked because of its industry and agriculture, and people think like,
right.
"Eh, there's nothing what's going on?" I can't tell you how many people were like who lived in California, and I told them I was moving here, they're like, "Bakersfield? Why are you moving to Bakersfield?" And I just have to say, first of all, haters gonna hate. And secondly, there's a beauty in every place. I truly believe that. And the people of Bakersfield have been so nice to me that
That's
I
nice.
really can't say anything bad about it. I really can't.
No, and I have nothing negative to say. I know it's like, the city Californians will look at it like it's some country town. And
Exactly.
I'm like, you move that city to Oregon or Washington or Arizona, it'd be like a major population center.
Mhm. Exactly, exactly. But like you put it, because it's in California, right? This place that's kind of like its own little country.
Yes.
It's, as you mentioned, a blip on the radar, which is
Yeah.
so funny.
Well, I'm glad you've been received so well there and treated so well
I'm
in
lucky. I
Bakersfield. That's
feel
good to
lucky.
hear.
Thank you.
Do you have any plans for your next hop, skip, and jump? What's your next market? We have so many options.
I mean, my dream is to stay here. I would love to stay in California. I really feel like, and I'm going to sound so corny, we all have moments in our life where you feel like your soul was just sort of like awakened, right? Like something just ignited inside of you and it just like propelled you forward into like this new happiness, this newfound happiness that you didn't know existed. That's kind of how I feel about moving here.
That's awesome. I think you might have lost most of the viewers and listeners with that. I don't know how many people get to experience that, but I love that you have. That's very inspiring to hear
Yeah, so
that.
I would love to stay in California. I feel like it's been a lifelong dream for me to live here. I have cousins and friends that live here, so I've traveled here throughout my entire life, and it's always been a dream for me to stay here. So I have one more year on this contract here in Bakersfield, and after that, I would love to stay here. But in this industry, you kind of go where the job is, right?
Right,
So
right.
wherever opportunity is, if it's good enough and it works with, God willing, my future, family planning that I'd eventually like to have,
Yeah.
then yeah, I'll go for it. But I definitely want to, market size. I definitely want to jump up a couple markets. But so far, Bakersfield has just been a great career option for me.
Well, so many congratulations and just
Thank you. Jose, I'm
very
not
much
used
admire
to
what you're
this.
doing.
It's
What's that?
usually I'm not used to this. It's usually me asking all the
Oh,
questions.
well, somebody's got to ask you some questions. You're the star now. You're the star. Uh, well, you've been a shooting star for your whole lineage. Um,
You're
I
hilarious.
want two more questions because I'm hogging your time up, and I
It's
know
all
I want
good.
you to get some rest, and the
It's all
viewers
good.
need you. So let me ask you two things really quick. What are three qualities you would encourage? There's some budding and aspiring writers, journalists, reporters, media people who are watching, and what are some qualities that you would encourage them to practice or you know extract from themselves and look inside and gather and apply to our world of media as we're the messengers.
So I sort of had a couple of things that I mentioned throughout this. So just out of not repetition and out of not sounding like a broken record, I'll say kindness is huge, is huge, 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 because that could be the reason why a source who's got this killer story might come to you and only you to break it. And kindness is also what allows you to network within your newsroom. I mean, think about it. All these journalists, we're all jumping all over the place. You never know who's going to be at your next market, who could be your next boss. So be kind to everyone. That's your coworkers, that's your sources. And lastly, the one that we always forget is being kind to yourself. You have to
Mm,
be patient and kind to yourself because most journalists have type A personalities, meaning they're very, very hard on themselves and on the work that they do. And that's great. That makes a great journalist. But you cannot forget to be kind to yourself. So that's number one. Number two, as I mentioned, and I have to just say it, fake it till you make it and build that confidence up within you. You're there for a reason. If you ever feel like, man, I suck and this or that and whatever, just remember why you started and why you were chosen for the position. You're there for a reason. And thirdly, I would say find a mentor. You have to find a mentor in this industry that it's going to help just show you the path. There's so many things involved. If you're a woman, I'm not saying men don't have things, but even as a woman, you have so many layers. You have to, excuse my language again, there's just a lot of bullshit that comes with this job sometimes.
yeah.
And if you have a mentor that can sort of prep you for the road ahead and guide you along the way and give you some feedback and help you grow, your growth is going to happen exponentially faster than if you were trying to wade through those waters blindly and alone.
you know Thank you for sharing that. And I don't appreciate you bringing up my next issue and question, which was mentoring, but I want to actually pause that question and redirect here really quick because you mentioned being a woman,
Mhm.
and the importance of having a mentor, as a woman. And I'm aware, and it's an issue that I give myself to, of unknown and very much public incidents of sexual misconduct or harassment um, that happens in the whole world, but specifically we're talking about media and news. Um, how should a woman? Let me put two prongs here. How should a woman prepare herself? Because there are rewards. There are
Mhm.
rewards for accepting that type of behavior. You know, career rewards and things like that. If you shut up and don't say anything or don't
Mhm.
buck any system. So what? How would you prepare? How should females prepare for this world, maintaining integrity as a communicator? And also, what would you describe for you the difference between a male and a man? Like, and I asked that question with regard to the same issue because there are those who I expect men to be part of the solution to this more than women. 80% of the time in any issue like this is women who have to not only defend themselves or address the issue, but they have to also be at the forefront of anything that has to do with these kind of issues. And typically, regularly, it's males who are the cause of the problem. Um,
Sure, not
that's a,
always, but as we've
not no,
seen,
definitely not always,
yeah.
but it's regular. It's common. It
Right, right.
happens.
It's the narrative we tend to hear the most, for
Sure,
sure.
sure. That's the
Um,
best way.
so yeah, to tackle the first prong, I'll say that the Me Too movement really changed things.
Okay.
I mean, holy cow, even for me as an educator, I taught a journalism course at Bakersfield College for
Okay.
2 semesters, and I was even told by my adjunct instructor peers to not be in the classroom with a student alone, and
Mm,
just how it changed everything. So in the education sphere, it changed things. In other industries, it changed things, and it dramatically changed things in the television news industry. And I can say that firsthand. I mean, I just feel like it was an excellent thing to have been exposed. This has been going on for far too long. Prior to my time getting into the industry, I remember I heard a couple of um, people close to me, I'll say, that were worried about me getting into this industry because they said, "Well, you know that you have to sleep your way to the top."
mm,
And I was just mystified that that was even a thing because that used to be how things were. When I was entering, it wasn't really like that. But I did learn quickly that there were some people that still operated, under those prior past times.
sure.
And the way that men used to talk to ladies in the newsroom is certainly not the way it is today. I'll tell you that. So, um, the second part of your question, yeah, there's a difference between a male and a man. A man is, as you mentioned, is going to be a part of that solution, and they're going to step up and stand for what's right. And a man, in my mind, um, man is included in gentleman. So I would hope that they would live up to that part of the meaning of that word too. So I will say it's complicated things. I know it's made people feel like, oh, I don't know how to operate anymore in the workplace. We're just at a period now where we're all just trying to figure it out, and eventually it will level out to a place that, everyone's comfortable. But it needed to happen. There
Yeah,
needed to be an uprising for women to stand up for themselves
yeah.
because not only are women still to this day, despite the Me Too movement, not getting paid as much as their male counterparts, but at that time, they weren't getting paid the same and they were getting harassed.
Yeah.
So slowly but surely, change, as we all know, is slow. But that was one of the best things to happen to this industry. So if you can get a female mentor, and as a man, I think also if you can get a mentor who is a man, I think that you can identify with that a little more. It's not to say that you can't ever cross over, but in my experience, I think it's better to have someone that you can just relate to the most. And for me, it's someone who identifies the same as myself.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was a great
Um,
question, by the way.
oh, thank you. I'm learning from you.
I'm learning from you.
Oh,
This
thank
has
you.
been a great conversation.
Well, let me again. I want to not hog up too much of your time, but I had one last question, and you've pretty much addressed this. But I did
Hmm.
want to give you a full deck of cards for this one issue, because this is part of what I do in working with our young people is establishing mentoring programs. And so, can
Amazing.
you talk a bit about mentoring and why that's an important endeavor to be a part of, not only for the proteges and the mentees, but for the mentor? Um,
Yeah.
and do you have a mentor as well?
So, I do not have a current mentor. I just have a couple. I have a couple of people who I send my stuff out to and I get feedback. Still searching for that perfect mentor, to be honest with you. But in the meantime, I think that it's like people say, you learn the best if you can teach it,
Mm,
right? So I can't tell you how much I felt like just my overall delivery, my journalism skills, my leadership skills improved when I became an adjunct instructor in the classroom where I had 50 students I had to manage and teach and be patient with and talk to after class and work closely with. It helped me tremendously, even as a journalist, even as a TV news anchor. So it does tremendous things for your growth as a mentor just as much as it does for the mentee.
That's right. Do you have a future, do you think, in further academic instruction? I love
I
that you're a
like
teacher.
that. I would love to do that. That's part of the reason why I got my master's degree, was to be able to teach. It's always something I've wanted to do. Like I said, I just feel so blessed. I mean, I've got to live out so many dreams moving here, and it's been incredible. And that was, part of the reason why I did it. I got my feet wet here is because it's, a smaller school. It's a perfect place to get started. And if I ever want to have a family and, the hate to say it, but the grind of journalism, if, it's not suitable for me and my future family life, I would definitely love to teach full time. That would or part time, depending on what my family's future family's financial situation is like. But it's definitely I see it again in my future for sure.
Good. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been a
This has been
great experience
awesome.
speaking with you, Sarah
I
Shouhayib.
agree. Thank you
And
so much, Jose.
do you have any final words for this conversation before we
All I
let you
wanna
go rest
all I wanna
or
say
work?
is, I know this is so cliche, and I'm gonna steal it from Lester Holt. He ends a lot of his newscasts like this, and he started doing it, and for those who aren't familiar, he hosts NBC's nightly news, and he ends his broadcast by saying, "Be kind to one another." And he started doing that ever since the pandemic started. Perhaps he did it before, but that's really when he started repeating that line. And that's just kind of what I want to say. Be kind to one another. There's just been so much um, just divisiveness in the country and so much separation, and we're all more alike than we are different. So that's kind of just the last thing I want to say. And whoever comes to office next, Trump, if he stays in office, or Biden, we just need unity right now, and we all just need to come together. It's as Tupac said, it's time for us as a people to start. What is it? It's time for us, the people, to start making some changes. Let's change the way we eat. Let's change the way we live, and let's change the way we treat each other. It's on us to do what we got to do to survive, and it's true. You know,
Who said that? Was that a quote? Who was it?
Tupac
Oh,
Shakur.
Tupac. Look at you.
Yeah, I just
We're
didn't
quoting
rap.
Tupac. Look at you. Well, that's excellent. Excellent. She's reciting raps too, everybody.
I'm from Detroit, man.
Can
Don't get me started with Eminem though, because I'll go on and on and on. I'm literally his number one fan.
we buy some houses in Detroit? Are they still like $10 brick houses
Nah,
in there?
man. Nah, man. Those days are gone.
Come
Mm-mm.
on.
Mm-mm.
I'm too late.
It's too late. Yeah, a couple
What?
years too late. Yeah, I mean, it's if you ever have a chance to go to Detroit, have you ever been before?
No.
Okay. I was gonna say if you ever went before and you see it now, it's completely different. It's just completely remodeled, basically. The only way to go is up after a bankruptcy. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a great place. And I'm going back for Thanksgiving for the first time since January. So I'm really
Oh,
excited.
wow. Well, be safe. We didn't even really get into this pandemic that we're dealing with. I mean, it's all about us and around us, but we didn't really focus on that. But be safe. And
You as well.
I'm
You
so
as
glad
well.
that you got to be available today. We got to spend some time here. And
Don't be a stranger. Anytime you'd like to do something like this again,
uh,
I'm more than happy. This was a wonderful experience.
Miss Shahayab, don't you start, because I'm gonna, when you're in LA at KTLA or something, I'm gonna be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Sarah Shahayab, please.
You'll have my direct phone number, okay?
Okay, because I don't want to hear she's
You can just
Mr.
text me.
Gutierrez. She's not accepting calls from you. That was the Bakersfield situation. That's it. Yeah, I will stay in touch. I can't wait to follow your career and watch where you
Thank
go.
you.
And I know
Same
you
with
just
you. Same with
make your
you.
family so
I
proud.
feel
And,
very honored that you were willing to give me this platform to explain who I am and what I do. Thank you for all that you do.
oh, thank you. And I'll make sure this is available for you and others to view, and I'll get it to you.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Fantastic. All right. Well, with that, you have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you, Sarah.
Absolutely. Take care.
Take care. All
Bye.
right. Bye bye.